Okay, looks like I'm live. I never know whether to give it like 2 seconds just in case it's just dicking with me and saying, "Hey, you're live," but guess what? You're not yet. So it's like when you pick up the phone and you're midway through a conversation, and then the person says, "Oh, hello, I can hear you now." Fuck me. Anyway, I have post-it notes, but I'm going to give the usual caveat. I might not stick to them because that's how I feel. All right, so something's changed in my setup. I don't know what, and I don't know why, but everything just feels weird. So I'd normally put these somewhere, and there's nowhere for me to put them. So I'll manage. Okay, first off, because I'm so bad at promoting my books. And I keep getting told, "Hey, when's the next book? Hey, tell us that you released a book 2 days ago. Hey, do you know when you're going to release a book like way in advance?" Yes, I do. Do I think to tell you? No, I don't. So here we go. For the first time in all of eternity, I am giving you a heads up. October the 4th, Deadland Drifter 4. See, I even got the title right. Like, Deadland Drifter 4 will be out and published for those of you who have read 1, 2, and 3. If you haven't read 1, 2, or 3 yet, you know what you have to do. And don't tell me, "Oh, it's on my TBR pile or my TBR list or my urgent TBR list," because there are like 100 books ahead of yours. I don't want to know. Just keep that detail to yourself. Tell me that you're about to read it or that you've read it. Okay. And while I'm with that, laugh at my jokes. Oh, speaking of fucking Twitter. Oh my God. Like, I can totally see why people get addicted to social media. Um, and I'm not scrolling. I'm not addicted because I'm scrolling. I'm addicted because I think I'm funny now. So if you want to join in that little delight, feel free to follow me, LD Clark. Oh, one of the this is the danger of social media, I swear. Like, there's this cutest little kid. I don't even know how old she is, so I'd be speaking out my ass if I said that she was 13. She might not even be 13. Um, but for some reason, she started following. Oh, it's because we had Brent Spiner in common, and we got chatting on one of his threads or something. And she posted this thing, and like, I guess these things do the rounds, where it says like, "Explain your handle." And she'd like explained it and like how you pronounce it as well. And I'm like, oh, that's really smart. So I did that for me. So every time I think of saying Lee Clark, I'm like, oh, you need to look at that post on my Twitter thing. But I can't even remember what it was like. Lee, as in Leigh, equals Lee in American. Oh, and it's got writer at the end of the, like, this, not the handle but the screen name. You can like change anything and like even put your political affiliations and any kind of like sass that you want to kind of put out there, like wear a fucking mask, people. Like, you can actually call yourself Lee wear a fucking mask, people, and you can change it like depending on whatever's going on in the pandemic. So there's that. And oh, I've got a like already. Oh, Alan, hello. Oh my God, I think this is the first time I've got live chat. This is awesome. Okay, fun. So now I've lost my thread. Merci bien. It's not your fault. It's my fault. Um, Twitter, Lee Clark. Oh, so I put writer at the end of mine, just so that when I'm like talking to all of these Hollywood writers and stuff, they know that I'm one of them. I'm really one of them, and I'm not. I'm not just some random stalker. I am some random stalker, and it's fine. I'm okay with that. I've made my peace with it. I worship their work, and I'm not ashamed of it. So I've put writer in capital letters. I know when I've made it as a writer, when I don't have to put writer anymore. But I guess we're probably a decade or two off that. So let's see. Melanie, hi. This is cool. I know sometimes you miss the Facebook lives, but here you are. And Alan says cough, best-selling author. Yeah, well, man, we can dream. So, on the topic of books, so I don't know whether Alan had seen that, but Alan's the one that chastises me regularly for not mentioning books. So, Alan, for your benefit, Deadland Drifter is out on October the 4th. So I got rid of that post-it note. Done with that. I'm currently working on something, punching the first book. So I've written the beats for the entire series. The entire series is 3 books long, i.e., it's a trilogy. So no matter what anyone says, it's not like, oh, more Molly and like maybe we resurrect it. It's like, no, this is 3 books, only 3 books. They're about 100,000 words a piece. It's basically cast in stone because all the beats are done. And what? And I'm punching the first book of it now. So that's kind of what's taking my kind of focused attention each day. That's what I call work, but it's not really work, it's play. But it takes focus, it takes caffeine. Oh, that was the other thing. No, I'll let you go and investigate on Twitter. I was going to tell you something else about what I'd written about Writer on Twitter. But anyway, go forth, find me on Twitter. It'll be worth it. Like, even if you sign up for an account specifically to be on Twitter, it's worth it for the sass. Alrighty. So yes, so this is kind of like a Maze Runner-esque kind of trilogy. We call it Maze Runner internally. So you know by now that we call everything like by something in-house, and then when we like go to press, we design a cover. We're like, oh shit! Don't call it cabbage. Call it, what are we going to call this book? And we decide like at the 11th hour. So it's going to be one of those. We haven't got a title for it, but internally we're calling it Maze Runner. Like, please don't sue me, Maze Runner people. So then there's another one. So do you remember I was saying about how between Star Trek and Next Generation and fucking Seth MacFarlane and his freaking Orville thing, like I was like, okay, my job as a writer in sci-fi, I'm done. I'm out of here. There's nothing else for me to do. These guys have nailed it. I'm done. It was about a month ago. And I was like, I'm going to talk myself off this ledge. At some point over the next decade, no, over the next year, I will talk myself back off this ledge and I will do a Star Trek-esque kind of thing. Well, you'll be pleased to know that's still stalled. But I am going to keep at it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. It's going to happen. And the animation is happening. I did some more work on that today. So I've got like the main scene like all drawn and colored and everything's like ready to rock. And now I've got to load them into the fucking computer. I mean, this is the equivalent of editing, I guess. I can't hand it off to someone though. Like, at least editing, you can say, hey, let me pay you money to go through it and like tidy it up. Whereas with production, it's like I even end up rewriting the script. Oh, which is the great thing about the book I'm reading at the moment. So I don't know if you've read Springfield Confidential. It's about inside the writer's room with Mike Weiss, I want to say, one of the writers for The Simpsons. And their process involves a rewrite and like coloring of the animation cells, like a complete redo, like at least twice. So that's their process. So I feel less bad about like having to go back and like fix stuff at the production thing and re-record, but that's happening. So that first little bit will be out next few days, I want to say, and I'll put it up here. I'll put it up here in YouTube. Patreon guys, you might see it a little bit beforehand, and I might say, shall I put this out? Shall I not? They tend to tell me like whether to release stuff or not. So yeah, what I realized in all of this is that like if I can just be prolific, eventually I'll get better and it'll be cool and I'll get funnier and more creative, and you know, maybe I'll hit some level of proficiency at some point. But damn, being prolific is hard. It takes so much focus and effort and oh my god, coffee. It takes coffee. I'm back on the wagon. I'm drinking coffee again. And I've got like in my righteous attempt to not do coffee. I'm looking at the counter now, and I've probably got half a dozen coffee alternatives. I've got yerba mate, I've got like some moon juice powder, I've got some banana and strawberry, what's it, that's got like 200 milligrams of caffeine in it per scoop. I've ordered golden ratio. I don't know if you've seen that online, but that looks like I think Instagram deliberately targets me. They just know, oh, she's a caffeine addict. Like let's see what we can tempt her with. I've got like um two different types of like normal bagged coffee, but for different things. Oh, and I've got like, is it Chimera on the way? I don't even know how to say it. But apparently this has nootropics already infused with the beans, so you don't have to like empty your capsules into it. So I don't know if this were a like serious addiction, I'd probably be at heroin level at this point. You know, like taking the beans and like heating them up with a cigarette lighter. That's the level of delinquency I think I'm at. Anyway, so yeah, watch this space. I'll probably do a little review. I'm optimistic about the golden ratio one because it's meant to like not like hurt your tummy as much. Like my stomach would be like, "You're killing us! You're killing us! I'm melting!" I don't even know what that's off. It's probably some random cartoon. Um, so yes, being prolific is hard. Caffeine helps. I don't know how long I'll keep it up. Like every now and again, I'll do. I'm not gonna do a day with coffee. I'm gonna like today. Coffee and I are breaking up, and I'll drink instant. So it's not really like breaking up with coffee. Anyway, so songwriting. I've done nothing. Although I have practiced that second part of the list piece that I posted in Patreon. So I'm working on that. So eventually I think what I'll do is I'll post the entire performance. Whether that performance will be in one take, I don't think so. I'll probably do like chunk and like practice them separately and like gear myself up for it. I don't know how concert pianists like do it, like to be able to do it all the way through. I spoke to one once after a concert and she was lovely and I was like, well, how much do you practice a day? She's like, "About 4 or 5 hours." I'm like, what are you kidding me? And she's like, no, but I really love practicing. I'm like, weirdo. But you know, like everyone's got their thing that they want to do, right? So I don't know. I'm trying to take that tact as well. It's like I enjoy practice. I love practicing. I love the hard bits before it gets fun. Not like the hard bits, but I've started doing scales again. So I had this conversation with my sister. Now, I don't think I've ever told you guys about my sister before, but back when I did like the storytelling conference for like the Hollywood writers and you know like screenwriters and whatnot, um, I brought Jemima, my sister, in to talk about story in the context. So she's like a music. She's doing a PhD in music or something or other, and then she switched to the English department. It's complicated. It's complicated. But basically, she's like this super expert in like story theory and story applied to music. And she does composition and all this kind of thing. So I don't know. I tend to think of her in terms of like Hans Zimmer, except she's female and pretty and she has like her hair in two different colors all the time. She's awesome. Actually, and we look kind of similar. Like I often look at her and I'm like, this is weird talking to you because it's like talking to a mirror. Um, and she even does the thing. So I don't know whether I've ever talked about this, but I think I melt people's brains when I chatter on at them. This is why I'm glad that I can't see your faces and I can't see when you're zoning out. So I have noticed that when I start talking about like abstract things and like I churn like this, people have a tendency to kind of zone out and they go, okay, this is too much. And they either like start falling asleep or they start getting kind of agitated and they overheat and all this kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm too much. I need to back off. My little sister did this to me over like Messenger, talking about the first things I need to do to get my story writing, not my story writing, my songwriting thing going. And I'm like, oh my God. So Melanie, is that upside down smiley face in agreement to the like zoning out? Oh my God. Okay. So so she starts telling me like all these things and she's like assessing me as well, and she's like, well, what was the highest grade that you did, and what music level theory did you do in so in the UK we have the Associated Board of Music, and we were both like music scholars and all this kind of thing. And she's like, did you take GCSE? And I'm like, no, I think I dropped it because I enjoyed soldering better. And I think that that's actually true because I went to, funny little segue, so I went to do design instead because I enjoyed soldering more, and I ended up building a home security system. And the oh no, it's about the keyboard, the piano stuff. Um, so uh, at that point, I wanted to understand. So when I'd been a little kid, like kindergarten, my mom was talking to another mom in a shopping mall, like a shopping center. This is back in England, right? And they said something about an alarm, like there was an alarm going off outside one of the shops, and they're like, "Oh, you so much as look at them," and they go off. And I was like, "Oh, that's a weird system." And like I tried to ask her about it, and like no one explained it to me, and whatever. So here I am, 14 years of age, 15 years of age, still don't know the answer to this. And I'm like, oh, maybe if I build a home security system, I'll understand this. Like in terms of the electronics, how can it be? Like, how can you have a sensor that you look at it and the thing goes off? I did an entire GCSE in this, and I did like an AS level electronics thing to try and figure this out. So I ended up with all these qualifications, and at the end of it, I asked my physics teacher, and I'm like, hey, and I was super embarrassed. I was like, is there a sensor where if you look at it, it goes off? And he's like, how could that happen? How could that even be a thing? Like, what are you talking about? And it doesn't matter. And then years later, it clicked into place. It was around the time of the Halloween sandwiches revelation where I realized, oh, it's a thing that people say. Like I don't even know what the word is. It's like a whatever. Like it's something that people say, like to exaggerate how often they go off. Um, but it's funny. Like I often get things like years later. There was something recently as well. I can't remember. But yeah, so no, I didn't do GCSE music. I didn't do A level music. And she goes, "Oh well, it doesn't matter. It wouldn't have been any good to you anyway." And then we're talking about these textbooks that I thought were meant to be helpful, and she's like, "Oh, those won't really help you." And she was going on and on and on, and it's like nothing's going to help me. And I'm like, "Well, how do I do this?" And she goes, "Oh, well, you need to know about this and about that and about that." And I'm writing all of these things down, and then she goes, "I'll tell you what, the first thing you really need to do." And so she teaches people as well, right? I'm like, what? She goes, you have to write out every scale on your own from the beginning and do all of them. Don't skip any of them because that's where people come unstuck. And I'm like, what? I gotta, like, I have scale books that have them written out. How is this going to help me? I don't know how it's going to help me, but apparently it is. It's called something. It's called scale. Hang on, let me tell you what it's called. Because some of you might, here we go, Jemima. Uh, Scale degrees. Then do exactly the same for all different minor scales and whatever other scales you want to venture into. Start at the beginning and don't try to jump ahead is my advice. People usually end up tripping. And I said, do I get the AB book, the textbook? No, find the information online somewhere. It's bound to be better explained than those AB books. And she's like, no worries, good luck, have fun. I'm like, fuck, okay, I'm screwed. Anyway, I started that today. So it looks like I've got this foray into music theory before I even write note one. I do have a piece of paper with lyrics written down though. But then another friend of mine said, oh no, you start with the melody and then you do the lyrics to fit it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm an expert at mashing shit together. Like, it'll be fine. We'll figure it out. So that's that done. So what else is going on? So deeply involved in studying comedy at the moment as well. Um, Twitter is useful for that because it means that I get to practice quick and stuff. Oh, Alan understands the theory. That's awesome. Very cool. Okay, so I might be hitting you up for the help with that as well then. Um, so yeah, so the biggest question that I have in comedy is, and I think what I'm gonna have to do is like interview a bunch of comedy writers and comics to really get to grips with, because like I don't think there's any one answer for this. It's like how to handle um race and um stereotypes, and how to do it in a positive way with with comedy, because like there are obvious jokes, but from the research that I found so far, using stereotypes reinforces them. So how do you disrupt the stereotypes? And like I've already, like one of my friends is a writer. Like I've got, so I'm looking over there because I've got his post-it notes over there, um, and um, and he said that like there are ways of like you cast your hero as the victim of uh the stereotypes, like, or the victim of the bully or whatever, and you model behavior that is unacceptable, and you make your other characters frown on it, and then you model behavior that is acceptable, and so on and so forth. And he says you could also like use like a couple of lines of dialogue here and there just to make your point. um so there's that. There's that. Um, but like when you watch people do stand up, and they'll tackle something, they'll have their little thing, and some of it's self-deprecating, and some of it's and some of it's attacking the status quo and the way that things are. And I don't know. Like I want to kind of dig in and figure out where the line is, and what makes it funny and acceptable, and what is unacceptable, and what's going to negatively impact. And then I'm sure like there are loads of stand-ups that I could go and watch on Netflix where it's actually going to um negatively impact how we treat each other as human beings. Um Even though it's funny, and then there's some that's negative and not funny, and so on and so forth. So I'm kind of visualizing. You can see how I deal with shit. I'm like, let me create a model. Let me have equations that'll explain all of this, and then we can map it on this gamut, and we can like put comedians on this gamut somehow and see how they intersect, and like maybe draw a circle around what is funny um or acceptable. And there's going to be an intersection between that and the audience that you're talking to, and the type of comedy that you do. So I'm in the process of like kind of breaking down those categories and figuring out the kind of questions that I want to ask someone. And then I think I'm just going to hit up like some of the comedy groups and say, hey, will any of you talk to me about this? I want to know. And maybe we'll air those interviews, and maybe I'll even write a book or a white paper or something on it. Because it's the kind of thing that, like, there isn't a market for comedy, I don't think. Um, Not in the way that we've been doing sci-fi and whatnot. Um, but I'm kind of enjoying it. It's making me laugh. Um, and I think to be able to like turn in a paper at the end of an investigation with like, okay, these are my conclusions. These are the things that still need investigation. Here's a model that I might use, because that's kind of how I got into writing sci-fi. Actually, it was a result of this story conference. Well, we put two story conferences on and a think tank. We probably did, probably got 200 interviews sitting on our G drive. And just as a natural result of that, I ended up kind of going, well, I could write this story thing. There's something there. And like I think story is a great carrier signal for change, for modeling good behaviors, and for changing a culture. Um, and I think it's a worthwhile pursuit. Um, and I like that's my guiding maxim. It's like, well, what can I do that can have the biggest and best impact for the input that I can provide. So that's why story, and comedy just feels like a progression from that. I think, beyond that. Um, or maybe not. Maybe it is. I don't know. There was something very important that I was going to tell you as well to do with comedy. Can't remember what it was. No, it's gone. Okay, so that's an anticlimax. Oh, yes, this is it. Maybe I'll become funny in the process. Like I might learn a little bit on like what makes things funny and how to do it myself. And then I can write some funny stuff, which would be kind of awesome. So yeah, that's pretty much all I've got. I was going to give you an update on the artist way thing, but basically I've fallen behind on that, so not really much to report there. So yeah, Deadland Drifter 4 is out on the 4th of October. Leave me your comments, and Ellie, you've already written funny stuff. Well, I hope so. I hope so. I've told you about my thing. Like at the moment, it's to make myself laugh 3 times a day. So Twitter helps with that. Oh yeah, so that's the other thing. Go follow me on Twitter, L Lee Clark. That's my handle. Oh, there was a tweet that I was going to tell you about. I can't remember what it is. What it was. It doesn't matter. You can scroll through my tweets at your leisure. Alrighty, I'm going to sign off, but lovely to see you and to give you the update. I have been meaning to do this for a couple of days, but I don't know, I think I got into a black hole of research and it just sucked me in. So I shall endeavor to do another one very soon. I think what needs to happen next is a reading of, so I think we're on chapter 5 or 6 or something. So I'll probably do that next and then give you an update on all these other things later on. Oh, and of course, the animation will be coming soon as well. All right, folks, lovely to see you. Thank you for being here, Alan and Melanie, and I shall catch you very soon. Okay, bye for now.